in his longest ever presentation to this assembly, of the largest, a few hundreds of millions there, just hundreds of millions and billions every year. Just spend, spend, spend. But Mr. Speaker, what about value for money? Mr. Speaker, when the stardust and moon glow of Budget 2024 have settled and the Copperfield effect has disappeared, then what is left is heavy and gray. Like thousands of other Guyanese, I was disappointed that more was not provided for public servants and pensioners to ease the burden of the cost of living. Mr. Speaker, when we examine Budget 2024, it must be in the context of present economic circumstances. Quoting from Guyana Chronicle of December 5th, 2023, the Guyanese economy has tripled in size since the start of oil extraction, and that was at the end of 2029. From one of the lowest per capita GDP in Latin America and the Caribbean in the early 90s. It is estimated, continuing to quote, it is estimated that Ghana's economy should record a 38.4% real GDP growth rate this year, that's in 2023, while growth rate should continue with an expansion of an expected 26.6% in 2024. The Chronicle was quoting an IMF report. Mr. Speaker, in 2029, the pre-oil year, Guyana's GDP per capita was $6,473. In 2021, the first year after oil production started, the World Bank data showed that Guyana had already entered the top 100 per capita economies of the world. Colleagues before me would have spoken about economic growth, and so it was members of the government side of the House, and rightly so. In 2023, per capita GDP was over $20,000, over $20,000, from $6,473 in 2019 to $20,539 in 2023, some 300% increase. And that, Mr. Speaker, is the context in which this budget has to be examined. For when the economy grows, it is the natural expectation of the masses that they will get more. For if we produce more, then it follows that our people should get and deserve more. I'm not saying equal percentage increase in earnings. What I am saying is that the increase in GDP and per capita earnings should be reflected in what our citizens, especially our disadvantaged citizens, are getting. So when the government comes to this House and announces a $3,000 increase for senior citizens and a few $1,000s more for the differently abled in society, then, Mr. Speaker, as we would say, the math's in. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, the Honorable Ganesh Mahaipal, provided undisputable statistics to show the widening of the divide between the elite and the poor in this country, the humongous salaries of ministers of government. And then my colleague, the Honorable Chris Jones, brought to our attention the paltry salaries of ordinary public servants and the next to nothing increase for those on the lower end of the salary scale. Mr. Speaker, chalk the cheese does not begin to describe it. Mr. Speaker, there's always the ridiculously positive rebuttal of what the coalition did and failed to do. Let this House be reminded that under the coalition government, our petroleum industry came on stream, from discovery to production, in one of the fastest ramp-up the global oil industry has ever seen. It is today the industry that is driving massive growth across all sectors. Mr. Speaker, the PPP of today would want Guyanese to believe that they are pro-poor and a government for the working class. But I say that philosophy died with Dr. Jagan, Dr. Chedi Jagan. As I said, Mr. Speaker, let us examine Budget 2024 in context of economic circumstances. Many would recall, Mr. Speaker, when the PPP came to office in 1992, Just within a few months, Dr. Jagan increased minimum wage by 46%. It was Dr. Jagan who also instructed that a bipartisan committee be established to look at the ways and means of increasing public servants' wages and salaries. The committee found that wages could be increased between 25% for the lowest band to 15% for the highest band. And that was at the time when Ghana was categorized a heavily indebted poor country. Today, Guyana is the fastest growing economy globally. When GDP per capita is up some 300% in the past 3 years. But this government can only provide a measly, miserly, paltry, skimpy 6.5% salary increase to public servants and insulted the memory of the founder of the PPP. And to compound the misery of the poor working class, the 6.5% increases across the board. So what the elite class in Guyana gets as an increase on their already massive salary could be the full salary for many ordinary citizens. So how better off are people today as compared to 2019, the pre-oil era? There should be no screw face, no anger, no resentment, no vexation. All Guyanese should be walking around comfortable with their pockets. Instead, it is one set of people smiling. The elite who gorge themselves at the trough of super salaries, inflated contracts, and backroom deals. They are smiling all the way to the bank. While the masses, public servants in the 1 to 3 or 5 salary scale, look on from the outside as the rich gets richer and they regress into abject poverty. Mr. Speaker, as I said, what about value for money? As I listened to the Honorable Minister of Finance presenting Budget 2024, the words of Morgan Heritage kept ringing in my ears, and it seems that we got a lot of people in here who like music and movies. The words, do you see anything to smile about? Billions being spent, but at the Bell West Health Center, Region 3, there are elderly persons who cannot get their blood sugar tested. A simple, basic, but life-saving thing as a blood sugar test very often cannot be done because the health center is out of strips. Mr. Speaker, do you see anything to smile about? Mr. Speaker, in April last year, Stabrook News reported that at the West Demerara Regional Hospital, a 16-year-old was admitted on a Friday. And up until the Sunday, when he died, he was not attended to by a doctor. Mr. Speaker, do you see anything to smile about? Or when a pregnant woman dies because she cannot get oxygen at the hospital, do you see anything to smile about? People living at the squatting area at the seaside of Anna Catherine or Reading Hoop Jetty or Perica Mud Flat. Many of them don't even have latrines. Mr. Speaker, do you see anything to smile about? Mr. Speaker, only yesterday, the newly commissioned school at the Willem Region 3, the children had to be sent home. No school, because the washrooms were flooding. Sewage was backed up. The school was commissioned on January 17th this year. And by the 23rd of January, just 2 days, Mr. Speaker, of being occupied, it had to close because sewage was backing up. But I guess that's what you get when friends, family, and favorite turn contractor. And I'm not going to even touch Bamia School because there's nothing there to smile about. Mr. Speaker, while the government boasts of how much they spent building schools in Region 3, the results are the NGSA and CSEC, apart from the few top performers, is again nothing to smile about. Mr. Speaker, no one on this side of the assembly is disputing the need for more schools to ensure all our children can find a place into school. But to pluck out a few high performance is nothing but the Copperfield effect, shine the spotlight on where you want the audience to focus. But there you look in the shadows, yes, the shadows. For there you will learn that at the primary level, some 75% of students who write the National Grade 6 assessment do not, I repeat, do not achieve 75% of the total marks to be earned. Ghana Times of July 8th, out of over 15,000 students who wrote the assessment, more than 11,000 did not get 75% of the marks. This is at the primary level, the bedrock of education. No one, I hope no one, would dispute the importance of primary education. No one is denying the importance of classrooms and books and trained teachers, but there's a disconnect between the inputs into the education system and the outcomes. Mr. Speaker, as a nation, we must not rest until those figures are turned around. Where at the very minimum, 75% of our children achieve at least 75% of the marks at NGSE. Mr. Speaker, this is not about scoring political points and political mileage. This is about the future of our country. Whether we have thugs and beggars in the streets or technicians and other professionals in the yard that the finance minister said we need. What is recommended, Mr. Speaker, because often they say that we come and we don't make recommendations. What is recommended is a task force comprising the ministries of education, human services, security sector, private sector, women agencies such as the Mothers Union, that would examine existing circumstances in each school so as to allow an environment where teachers can transfer knowledge in a safe environment. Let us find out what the problem is and fix it. Because, Mr. Speaker, it's fast becoming a situation where school is not a safe place. The school term just started, just a few weeks ago. And yesterday there was a report at Zeeburg. A parent had its child hit another child in the presence of a teacher. And the teacher was so afraid, too intimidated to do anything about it. Every day, Mr. Speaker, there's bullying. Teachers are threatened with bodily harm. Too often those threats are carried out. At Breeden Hoop Secondary, gangs of young men terrorize students and teachers. How will the billions end this scourge? Mr. Speaker, continue to look at what is taking place in Region 3 under the PPP government and the failure to address the needs of the ordinary people. More than a year ago, at a PPP public meeting on the west bank of Demerara, me personally, asked that the playground at Laratrait be rehabilitated. The Honorable Vice President was there. The Honorable Minister Indar was there, and I'm sorry that he's not in the house right now. I spoke with him directly. To date, nothing has been done. The ground remains overgrown. The fence in disrepair. The young men from Laratrait and Stanleytown who want to play a little scrubby football on the weekends try to keep a portion clear, but lack the resources to clear the entire ground. And this ground is next door to a school, Mr. Speaker. Still on the West Bank at Bagottville, the same thing.
Honourable member, before you continue to tell us about the West Bank, you'll need an extension.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude our presentation.
Thank you very much. Honourable member, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So it's the same thing at Bagottville, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my grandfather came from the palm oil. So the proud Carib blood flows in my veins. Mr. Speaker, for centuries, our nation's first people have preserved the forests. Their sacrifice today allows for those forests to earn money in the form of carbon credits. Yet, like subjects of a colony, they do not control how those funds are spent. A paltry 15% is given to them. Last year, I said they should get no less than 50%, and I make that call again The first peoples of this nation must be allowed to chart their own course, to define the agenda of their conference, to set their own budget for it, and they should be allowed to take the money for the carbon credits to fund their conference. Our Amerindian peoples are free and must benefit from the sacrifice of generations of their foreparents. Mr. Speaker, last year, Guyanese in the world watched in disbelief as 20 beautiful souls suffered an avoidable fiery death, avoidable. We learned from the survivors how the fire quickly spread across the PVC ceiling, fueling the flames. It will shock Guyanese, and it will shock the world to know that portions of the newly commissioned school dorms at Lenora has PVC. Don't we learn, Mr. Speaker? Don't we learn? Mr. Speaker, one of the largest allocation of budget 2024 for a single project is for the gas to shore project that is said will provide 300 megawatts of energy. Mr. Speaker, last year, power consumption peaked at 182 megawatts. So how really is this government catering for an expanded manufacturing sector? 2, the people money being spent on this project, but to date, we do not have the final figure for this project. And 3, ExxonMobil has not made a final investment decision on this project. The government keeps siphoning off money out of the national coffers for this project, but what the people do not know of this project, far out knows what is known. Mr. Speaker, as I said, budget 2024 has a Copperfield effect. That illusion of doing great, wonderful, seemingly impossible achievements. But unlike Copperfield, where it's just an illusion and the building remains in place, at the end of 2024, the PPP would have made more than $1 trillion disappear from the national coffers. Mr. Speaker, like my colleagues in the poor, hard-working public servants, pensioners, and impoverished this fastest growing economy, I cannot support budget 2024. It needs to go back to the drawing board. Mr. Speaker, budget 2024 staying the course. It's more like a curse. The curse to the memory and legacy of Dr. Chedi Jagan, a curse to our old age pensioners, a curse to our hard-working public servants, a curse to poor people of Guyana, a curse to the yet unborn Guyanese child who on entering the world will be burdened by debt. But come 2025, Mr. Speaker, yes, because I was in the media and I covered many assignments with him. But come 2025, Mr. Speaker, the good people of this land will do the comparison. What they got before oil under the coalition government and what they're getting now that the economy has grown by 300%. And they will take the red jersey, they will take the money, they'll take the barbecue, attend the free concerts, and they will change course. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member.